Well, howdy, friends, and welcome to another Fireside Chat. I'm Winder Lyons, and I have Eddie Stone on with us, the owner, founder, and driving force behind Touchstone Essentials, this amazing company that we're participating in. Howdy, sir, and welcome to today's chat.
Hi, Winder. Happy to be here as always, and appreciate some of the kind comments that I received. I had some people direct message me through Facebook and Instagram about what's been posted already, and so appreciate the chance to speak to our little burgeoning tribe here.
Well, hopefully it'll burgeon out some more. So
I'm confident of that.
So today I had asked if we could chat about the Wellspring, and for those who aren't familiar with this, I think that this is maybe one of the most unusual products I've ever seen. And let me just get into this a little with a little background. I was, having a lot of issues, a lot of pain issues. Not that I'm not a pain, but I was having pain. And in my knees in particular, I was having trouble, I'd wake up in the morning and be really stiff and sore. Walking, if I overdid it, I would be done for a couple of days. And my son, who is a chiropractic neurologist and, really, really knowledgeable in these areas, kept telling me, you got to take more fish oil. You got to get omegas into your system. So I didn't pay much attention until I, went to the VA and had heard the same info over there, surprisingly. And so I finally went, okay, all right. So I started taking a lot of omegas. And it's hard to get into the omegas because it's really difficult to find really good quality fish oil. Because they go rancid in a heartbeat, and you've got all this junk out there that people are masquerading as good. But I started taking a honker amount of this stuff, and sure enough, the pain went away. Duh. I'm a little slow, and I get there eventually, right? So here you come with Wellspring, which is something I've never heard of, a vegan omega. And I don't even know if that exists anywhere else in the world but here. I've never heard of it or seen it. Of course, I don't know, but I'm just assuming it's pretty unusual. And so I swapped out taking a vast amount of these very expensive omegas for 2 or 3 Wellspring a day, and the pain did not come back. Nothing changed. It was like, oh, wow, this is really something. So what's up?
Well, my story, it's not too much different than yours. I had been told about omega-3s, fish oil products, and they could help out with joint pain, stiffness. This was a long time ago for me, 20-some years ago, and part of that conversation came from the fact that I had chronic back issues and was flying all the time and just sort of, dealing with things and not wanting to get stuck with just using ibuprofen or maybe something more serious to control it. And so I was intrigued by that. And I mean, really just like you, I found myself, in order to get an impact, felt like I was taking a handful, and they weren't small.
No.
They were good sized capsules.
Honker doodles.
Yeah. And if you were buying the good stuff at the time, I bet I was spending $75 a month on fish oil. Right?
Easily.
I mean, I kind of smelled like fish. Right? It's just a little too much. But, one of the things we forget is that we can get omega-3s, omega-6s, and omega-9s from plants. We sort of forget that, and maybe that's partly because the market, or at least the conversation, have been dominated by companies that sell fish oil products. But when we began to put together Touchstone, and the approach we take is a holistic approach, and what I mean by that is more than just our personal care. I mean that also just in terms of things we do as an organization that impact community or environment. I mean, this is not about the sprint. This is about the longer, broader picture, and leaving a world that's better than the world we found, to the degree that we have that capacity. And so we made a decision early on that we would be really hesitant to embrace things that were not plant-based. And I did sort of think, well, but maybe with the fish oil type product, maybe we'll have to. But it turns out that the majority of fish oil products, the reason you're having to take so many is that they have to be oxidized. And that's even if it says on the label that it was caught by a fisherman, single line, wild caught, the fisherman was freezing, out in the Arctic, doing the whole thing. So this is totally, the cold caught fish. It still has to be processed with heat in order to control, just as you said earlier, that the product would go rancid. But now, given the volume of environmental pollutants that we face in our oceans, if it's going to be wild caught, an ocean-borne fish, it still has to be oxidized to get rid of the heavy metals that are just natively there. I mean, you're not going to catch an ocean fish that doesn't have some problems with heavy metals and other environmental pollutants. We've mistreated our oceans. We'll just let that go there. That's a discussion for another time, but it's impacted the quality of the seafood, particularly as it relates to environmental pollutions and heavy metals. And so it has to be oxidized, right? That's just by condition that exists out there. And once you oxidize the fish oil, it denatures and changes the triglyceride chain. And so it's no longer as effective as it was. And for some people, they could probably gobble down a couple handfuls and see no impact whatsoever. And the great promise when you get this right blend of omegas is, one, it will help out with temporary inflammation, joint pain, stiffness. It can also have a positive impact on a person's cholesterol. I mean, there's just this cascade of effects if you get a good product. And so we went to the drawing board to see what was out there in the plant community that would make sense. And what we quickly came to realize is that plants have an inherent advantage because you can use what are referred to as unrefined parent essential oils, which are essentially precursors that then allows your body to make the downstream metabolite change to it in a usable form, and the body can control how much omega you're getting, right? You're using your body's own processes. So it goes back to, instead of trying to supply a finished product to the body, which is not necessarily the most efficient or the best way to utilize the strength and the genius of the body, a parent essential oil is then converted. And so particularly the amount of DHA that you need is then controlled. Otherwise, you find these omega products where they have really high counts of EPA and DHA. The problem is if you constantly supply that to the body atrophies in terms of its ability to create EPA and DHA, and it's not self-regulated. And you can wind up basically with imbalance. And I think most people that are listening to this realize that, hey, if you've got an imbalanced situation here, that's not the most healthy condition you can get to, certainly not homeostasis in terms of optimizing health. And so we made a simple decision that we were going to go back and source the finest varieties of parent essential oils that in combination would give the right ratio of omega-3, 6, and 9, taking into account that most people get way too much 9 and 6 in their diet because they are meat eaters. And so to try to bring in this balance. And so what we've got is a vegan antioxidant product, right? First and foremost, it's really 6 incredibly powerful plant-based superfoods, and they provide the omegas that you need in much smaller quantities. I mean, the efficiency here is just really incredible. And so for someone like myself it probably is not much of an exaggeration to say that I was taking 9 to 12 large gram capsules of fish oil to get any kind of impact at all. And I can take 2 of our Wellspring product, which is a serving. Maybe if I'm traveling sometimes, I try to overdo it a little bit. So I'll take 3 just to kind of cover my base because they're long days and lots of airplanes and other things, and get that same type of impact where I'm helping to control that temporary inflammation. And then I've got the other benefits because it isn't just the fact that these parent essential oils such as borage, flaxseed, pumpkin seed. We just did a piece last week on the value of pumpkin seed. And for anybody that hadn't seen it, it's on our blog. And even coconut oil and what they can provide to the body, whether it's the GLAs, the gamma lanolinic acids that you find in borage oil. You've got the ALAs, which are the alpha lanolinic acids, the lanolinic acids, that you find in flaxseed. That's easy to say, right? But there's just a lot of benefits there that go beyond just the sort of single idea of a source of omega-3. And so again, for us, it's trying to broaden the way we think about it. And then we made a decision to add turmeric to it, because for someone that's looking to have a positive impact on joint pain and stiffness, turmeric is one of the finest Ayurvedic medicines that mankind has ever heard of in terms of its benefit. And so we went out and found an unrefined sourcing, an organic sourcing of a fine turmeric root. When you see the capsules, I mean, they are teeming with yellow. And if you were to open them up and put them into a smoothie, it's going to taste like turmeric, right? It's going to taste like a nice Indian meal because it's so flavorful and powerful. And then we combined it with ginger root, in part because we know that the parent essential oils and the turmeric, there's a synergy of absorption and utilization by the body when present with the ginger root. The ginger root has some natural antioxidant qualities, but they also can help with the absorption of the turmeric, of those parent essential oils. It's just a wonderful combination, sort of recipe of ingredients that for most people, if you spent a little bit of time on our page looking at the details, you'd go, oh, that makes complete sense to me. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's been a real home run because the people that use it, you can see some of the testimonials on the site, they're just thrilled with the results that it generates for them.
Well, I was doing what you were, 9 to 12 of those honkadoodles a day, and man, that's a lot, and it was, as I mentioned, it was not cheap getting the really good stuff. So this is a real treat. Had you ever seen another vegan omega that's comparable to this?
I haven't seen anything now, and I'll own up to my bias here, right? I mean, I'm proud of what we do and know the kind of work we put into what we build, but I haven't seen one. I know that there are some algae products, but it's a very narrow range of additional benefits that they could provide. I don't have any information to suggest that the algae can assimilate and are picked up by the body at the same ratio as the parent essential oils and or as that feeder for that beginning piece of EPA and DHA. And so, and that's really a critical component here is to get the body to convert to the right amounts of EPA and DHA. And so I haven't seen anything that I think is comparable. And I'm continue to be impressed just across the board with the benefits we see people come back to us and talk about. It is one of the better selling products we have on a global level. And for those that find themselves in a situation where they feel like they need extra amounts, we've made it available at a good price for the single product, but there's also a buy 3, get 1 free package. So package that we offer. So this is one of those real core products that we think is a part of the identity of Touchstone and been a part of our heritage really since the beginning.
So if somebody is taking just the normal amount, what would be the benefit of taking double or triple that? Is that any harm, or is it just something you could choose to do?
Yeah, absolutely no harm, right? And so with all of our products, I want folks to remember, it's just like you're eating from the garden. And while you can eat too many calories and they may just slough off, or you may have some, weight control as it relates to something like this, there's no toxicities or anything of that kind when you're talking about whole food supplementation. There might be a point where you get a diminished return, but if you have a lifestyle that's, frankly, like a lot of American lives, it's filled with stress. You're dealing with travel. You're dealing with pollution just in your general environment because of the traffic or the city or the environment that you live in, the everyday stresses and the strains, your trouble controlling your weight. I mean, there's just a variety of things that make you more prone to inflammatory issues. And so you need some help in that regard. It may be because of the weight you carry that you've got problems associated with your joints that, while you simultaneously need to be dealing with the weight issues. You're trying to control that without having to rely on, something like an Advil constantly or other things in that nature. And so this gives you a tool to figure out what works for you, but you're really not going to reach a point where you've taken too much from sort of this idea of overdosing on it. You just may meet a point where there's a diminishing return. And I think if you listen to your body, that's easy to figure out.
Well, and for about a third of the cost. So compared to the high quality fish oils, I'm really impressed. Lynn and I did a thing where we were comparing cost on what we were buying, in the general marketplace and what we were able to eliminate since we have these incredible things that we're substituting now. I think we're saving money, for the highest quality products I've seen.
You know what, Winder? You are saving money. I mean, not everybody wants to go through this exercise, but we do as an organization. So whether it's taking something like our organic vegan protein, where we say, okay, if I go and source this stuff myself, what's it going to cost me? Or our super green juice, right? Those 44 different ingredients. And if I go try to source that myself, and number one, can you really go source all that? That's organically grown with the right potency, pulled from the right regions. It's just difficult in sort of a lay person environment to reassemble this combination. If you had to go out and try to piece together your own combination of borage and flax and pumpkin seed and coconut and go find some turmeric and grind it down, go find some ginger and grind it down, put it together, you're realistically, that's not going to happen from a costing standpoint. You're talking probably 5-6 times more than you're going to pay in addition to the convenience that you get with us. And if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to do it with fish oil, fair enough. But just like you said, be prepared to spend a lot more and spend a lot of your time gobbling down these gel caps filled with rancid fish oil. I hate to be ugly about it, but that's how it is.
So the other thing, now I hear sometimes people say, buying these vegan, organic, superly perfectly handled stuff is expensive. And, my point, I think, often is, well, how expensive is a hospital stay? And what's going to happen to you in the long haul if you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later? How do you respond to that sort of thing when people say to you, this is, organic is expensive?
Well, there's sort of two sides of this. But I'm going to give you a little story from my youth that will just give you sort of where my head's at on this. So I grew up and I used to work in a motorcycle shop, a Yamaha dealership in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I worked on the floor on Saturdays particularly. And I remember a gentleman coming in and he bought a motorcycle. I don't think he had owned a motorcycle in a long time, right? So he sort of gravitated to a pretty simple little street bike, nothing terribly fancy. And because of the price of it, I thought, well, he's kind of entry level here, right? And so work out the transaction, saw the motorcycle and said, hey, do you need a jacket? Do you need a helmet? He says, yeah, I need a helmet. So I immediately go and grab really the least expensive helmet that we have. And on the box, it says sale price, right? I felt great about that. I mean, it was probably like $49.95. And of course, we had helmets that went well over $500 to $1,000, sort of just depending upon the circumstances. And he just looked at me, he had this sort of funny look on his face. He says, do I look like I've got a cheap head? He said, if I go down, do I want to think I got the cheapest helmet that you sell? He was just a little incredulous about it. He said, son, I want you to go get the most expensive helmet that you have and think of my head as being pristine and priceless, because that's what it is. And so that was one of my first lessons on things of this kind. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, they've acclimated themselves to thinking of the portion of their budget that's oriented towards food as being an exercise in the cheapest food possible, right? The coupon culture that we live in, the buffet culture that we live in, where we really value sort of this caloric assembly at the cheapest possible price, right? So if it's 1 ounce and 500 calories for 11 cents, or whatever, people, I don't know that they mathematically do the numbers, but they are really trying to look at food and make it inexpensive, much like they might buy the cheapest gas available, or much like they might shop insurance. And yet on the other side, they'll go out and they'll buy these elaborate phones, iPhones, or they don't hesitate to pay $4, $4.50 for a mocha frappa, Americana, China, whatever, it has to be. And hey, it's all about personal choice, and I get that, but I would just encourage people to really think about the fact that food, the quality of the food you consume, has as much bearing on your health and the health of others that you feed in your household as any other single thing you can do. Smoking or not smoking doesn't impact it the same. Exercise doesn't impact it the same. The food, the quality of the food you get. And so with that same notion, don't shop your vitamins with a coupon because it's a waste of time. You go out there and think about it in the same discerning approach that you would with food. 10 years from now, your future self will reach back and pat you on the back and say, thank you for not making everything about food or my supplements all about the cheapest thing possible, because you're cheapening your life. And there is just this notion that you described, Winder. It's pay me now or pay me later. And it's, I know I'm on a soapbox and I hate to go there with people, but this is one of the most important issues we can think about.
Well, and, we're in the sickest, most ill, disease-ridden, if you will, industrialized country on the planet. And that's not an accident. Our diets are horrible. Now, look at you, sir, waving that elbow around. You're waving your arm. And how long ago was that you?
6 weeks ago, this past Saturday, I got a A+ rating from a PT and my doctor this morning. And I don't know if people can see it or appreciate it, but I'm right at about 10% on my flex, and it was at 25% a week ago, and just a little more to go, and pretty excited.
That's not by accident. That did not happen, because you're in lousy shape. What are your doctors telling you about that?
Well, here it is today. It's the first part of November, and they thought I'd still be in the cast in the first part of December. Because he kind of said, hey, listen, prepare yourself to go through Thanksgiving in your cast. And he basically said, and I got good genetics, I admit that, but I'm healing like I was in high school. From bone structure standpoint, skin and muscles and things like that. They released me to do 5-pound lifts to strengthen the muscles today. And he thought that'd be after the first of the year. So look, I feel blessed and fortunate, but there's no question that this investment in food and having a discerning eye towards the quality of food and supplements has played a role. So I got a little list, right? You can, the listener can decide if this is important. Wellspring works for joint and skin health. Think of how much people spend on managing joint pain and stiffness and all the money they spend trying to deal with skin-related issues, whether it's the face or the rest of their body. It also helps out with healthy cholesterol. Same product, healthy cholesterol, heart health, right? Get rid of that temporary inflammation and your vulnerability to high blood pressure is lessened. Immune health. It works with not just the temporary relief of inflammation in the joint, but also helps to provide building blocks through the turmeric and the curcumin to help rebuild the synovial fluid inside the joint. And finally, with the ginger, it aids in digestion. That's all in that little bottle you held up. That's just powerful.
It is. And you reminded me that curcumin, I was also supplementing with a lot of that, which I have stopped now. So, this is just really fun.
It's one of the best. I think all of our products are a good value. And if you listen to me, I'll say it every time. This is one of the best values we have. If you look at the richness of the sourcing and the combination of the formula and the uniqueness of the formula, a person can do themselves quite a service if they make this part of their daily routine.
Well, I'm a believer.
Yeah. So if they want to learn more, there's a ton of detail on the shop page. So when you go there, you've got multiple tabs down there that will give you science and FAQs and reviews. And if you put Wellspring into the search bar on our blog, you'll put up numerous blogs that dive into the depth of the issues. There's some science on the tabs. The bottom line is the jury is not out on this, right? We know that these ingredients work in a powerful combination. So there's no debate going on. It's just a question of working it into your health routine. because it can be that powerful.
Got it. Well, wonderful conversation, sir, as per usual. Anything
Thank
else you'd
you.
like to add here at the closing moments?
You know, I will say this, because we're recording this just before going into the holidays here in the U.S. And I think people sometimes, you know, my wife tells me people in the neighborhood are hesitant to invite us to dinner because they think I'm scrutinizing what everybody eats. And so, I mean,
I want a
fair
lab
enough.
test on that broccoli before I eat it.
I mean, I admit I'm a broken record, but this is what I believe in. So I want people that are watching us, I want you to enjoy the food that you're around this holiday. If there's ever a moment where it's okay to indulge and think about the richness, but make sure you also think about the role that plays in health, right? And how encompassing these things and being an advocate for good quality foods and less ultra processed foods for you and your family. It's a great way to serve the family and others you love during this holiday season. So that kind of be my kickoff message there.
Might be a little awkward at Thanksgiving when you eat somebody's stuff and then you pull out your your pure body and start taking it. I got to counter this stuff, you know.
Hey, it's no worse than when people bring up politics and religion, right? So we're all good if we just bring out a pure body at the table.
Edward Stone, thank you, sir. Wonderful conversation. I look forward to our next one.
Thank you, Winder. Bye-bye now.
Bye.